they checked her breathing and they said everything was good. Like that she was practicing her breathing, and if I absolutely had to give birth, that she should survive. I was 33 weeks when this happened. The entire hospital experience was a nightmare. They said that I was having contractions. They were pretty spaced out though. I think they were like every 15 minutes or so. And I don't think I was in like active labor or anything like that. They didn't give me anything to, stop labor or slow it down. They did want to wait for contractions to stop before letting me go home. They wanted to admit me, but my husband and I were like, the bleeding stopped, the contraction stopped. Like, what is the point in staying overnight? Like, I'm uncomfortable. It's freezing. Like, no one was giving me blankets. Like, it was terrible. So I was like, well, it's not like we can't come back if something does happen. Like, we can just go to the hospital that's closer up the road. There was one that was literally like 2 minutes from our house, like in walking distance. We just happened to drive, the 15 minutes, which, I mean, he made it there in a lot less time. But we went to the one that was 15 minutes away. Since that's where my doctor worked out of, that's where we chose to go. So anyway, we went home. They didn't want to discharge me, but they did. We went home. Everything seemed fine. I was told to be on bed rest for the rest of the week, and I did end up going back to work. I think I went back to work for another 3 or 4 weeks. In that time, from the time that I had gone to the hospital for the bleeding until the time I gave birth to Brady, I had to do the non-stress tests, so many of them. Like, I had to do them multiple times a week. They really just were trying to keep a close eye on her and monitor her. She was not growing properly, which is why I feel like something had to have been going on with the placenta. Like, something, to me, and my maternal fetal medicine doctor now also believes that something had to have been going on with my placenta. Mind you, I don't live in Massachusetts now, so this is not, someone who's like familiar with, me and like those moments, like when I actually experience those things. But she's great. She has so much experience with so many other people who have been through these things. And she honestly just believes that something had to have been wrong with the placenta to cause the bleeding. And then after that, I was diagnosed with IUGR. They said that Brady was not growing properly in the womb, and they really wanted to induce me. The earliest that they could schedule me for an induction was, let's see, she was born September 1st. They wanted to do it August 31st, which brought me to, I think I was 39 weeks, which is nothing abnormal. But they just, at that point, because so many people are induced, a week before their due dates, I didn't think there was anything crazy about that. And I mean, I guess they just wanted to wait as long as they possibly could, because they do say that babies are better off in the womb. However, this situation was very different, and I don't know that she was better off in the womb, especially since she was IUGR, which is intrauterine growth restriction. She was not growing properly in the womb. From the time that I had that bleeding until the day I gave birth to her, she grew 2 weeks worth in that 6-week time frame. So I don't know, like that just seemed a little strange to me that they wanted to keep her in for so long. I mean, it is what it is now. Like, she was 5 pounds, 11.4 ounces. She was still really tiny, but I mean, I don't think she was like abnormally tiny for being born a week early. Like, I know plenty of babies who have been born much smaller at full term. That leads me into my pregnancy with Austin. Because I was like high risk for IUGR based off my previous pregnancy. At this point, my husband and I were living in Virginia. We made the decision to move to be closer to my family for, I guess, just like help with Brady, and I don't know, just to have like more involvement. However, I don't mean anything bad by this, but like Virginia, where I went, my doctor, the whole situation was just insane. Like, I would not recommend it for anybody. I would not recommend this doctor's office, the series of doctors that I had. I never saw the same doctor. No one seemed concerned that I had IUGR. With Austin, I ended up having, I did not have preeclampsia, but I did have high blood pressure. On occasion, I had extreme swelling of my lower extremities, and I don't know, like, they seemed concerned for blood clots and stuff, but they didn't really take action on anything. My husband and I were just so fed up with everything. At that point, like, we really didn't want to be in Virginia anymore. We just weren't satisfied in the living situation, and then we had goals that just, like, weren't going to be met there. So we moved back to Massachusetts. I got my old doctor back. Everything was great. He started having tests done, and everything was great. Like, you know, they just monitored everything. They were like, you know, it's not good to have high blood pressure. It's not good to, you know, have swelling in the lower extremities. And they gave me so much more advice. Like, I just feel like the healthcare is so much better in Massachusetts, but that's just my personal opinion. I don't want to offend anybody. So besides that, everything seemed to be going pretty well with my pregnancy with Austin. I believe I was about 6 months pregnant when we moved. So we moved in June. He actually had the same due date as Brady. Neither one of them were born on their due date. So after 2 months, he was born a month early. That was the craziest labor. I was induced with Brady, so I had no idea what to expect. I hadn't felt Austin move since the night before. I worked overnights at the time, and it was in a sleep overnight position because I was pregnant and I really needed the sleep. So the sleep overnight position, you basically like take care of a few things when you first get to work, just like for the first hour, then you can sleep until, you know, like 2 hours before you're scheduled to leave. So, I mean, you're not sleeping the entire shift, but you do get, you know, a decent amount of sleep. So I had like been playing around with my belly, and I didn't really feel him too much. And I'm like, okay, that's really weird. But I didn't think too much into it. I went to sleep the next morning. I did my thing at work. I went home. And at the time, Brady was almost 2. We decided to go to the grocery store and do our grocery shopping for the week. And I don't know, like, I just felt like a lot of pressure down into my hips and my pelvic area. And since I hadn't felt him move since the night before, I kind of thought maybe I was going into labor, because I had heard that, you know, the baby stops moving so much like right before labor, and that's just, you know, one of the signs. So I called my doctor's office while I was at the grocery store. Didn't hear back for several hours. Like, I got off work at 8 o'clock in the morning. And at this point, it was probably like 8:45. I had enough time to get home, and then we left and we went to the store. So it was like almost 9 o'clock in the morning when I was on the phone with my doctor's office. They reached out to the hospital, and they were supposed to have the hospital call me and let me know what to do, because they didn't know if they wanted me to go be checked out in labor and delivery. So I finish my shopping. I go home. I get Brady a snack, and we're just like hanging out. I eat something because I'm like, you know, just in case they do have me go, I want to make sure I eat because I'm starving and I just don't want to be hungry, you know, because even if they did have me go in and I didn't go into labor or anything, who knows how long I would have been there. So I did pack a little bag for Brady just in case, you know, so she had had something to do. My husband was at work. He worked 30 minutes away from where we lived, but about 45 minutes from the hospital. I called my mom and I was telling her what was going on while we waited. Eventually, around like 11:55, I think it was, like, I don't even know, it was like almost noon, I know that. 3 hours later, over 3 hours later, I finally get a phone call from the hospital, and they're like, yeah, I guess we're gonna have you come in and get you checked out. Your doctor seems concerned with, you know, X, Y, and Z. So we just want to have you come in so we can make sure everything's okay with the baby, since you haven't really felt him move. They asked me some questions like, had I felt him move? And I was like, no, I haven't felt him move since last night, but I don't feel like anything's wrong. You know, like, you have like a feeling when something is wrong. I didn't have that. So I was like, I don't feel like anything is wrong with him. But they still wanted me to come in. As soon as I hung up that phone, I had a contraction. Now at the time, I didn't know, like, is this a real contraction? Is this Braxton Hicks? I don't know if I've even felt a Braxton Hicks contraction. Like, I don't even know what that is. I'm on my 3rd pregnancy. I still don't know. So I felt a contraction. I didn't really panicked too much. I just started like getting my stuff together to get ready to go. I finished eating my food. 15 minutes went by, I had another contraction. Then it was 5 minutes later, then 3 minutes, then 2 minutes. And I was like, okay, this is for sure Braxton Hicks. Like, none of these have been, you know, consistent. Like, I haven't. 15 minutes later, 5 minutes later, 3 minutes, now 2 minutes. I'm like, there's no way. And then it was 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. So I'm like, oh crap. Like, I need to call my husband. Like, I called him and I was like, I'm on the way to the hospital. Like I think I'm like in labor. I was like, just meet me at the hospital. He called his mom. He's like, I'm gonna have her meet you there. So this all happened so fast. I just like panicked to get stuff together. I don't even think I had a hospital bag ready because I wasn't expecting to go into labor. I was 36 weeks. And with my daughter, I didn't pack a bag until 36, 37 weeks, like sometime around there. So this was just crazy. I showed up to the hospital and I obviously had to drive. I was with my daughter. So I had to drive with her. We had no one else to watch Brady. And, you know, his mom was going to meet us at the hospital. I drove. I mean, it was very uncomfortable. I wouldn't say it was like excruciating pain. Like, it definitely was a different type of pain than when I was induced with Brady, but it still hurt. It was just like, you know, I was trying to stay calm. And it was more of like something that was just like, it was hard to breathe. More so than like hurting. It just kept like taking my breath away. It was just like super uncomfortable. So I get to the hospital, park the car, grab all our stuff. I walk in. I ask the lady at the front, where's labor and delivery? She sends me along my way. I get into the elevator and this lady's like, where are you going? I tell her I'm going to labor and delivery. She's like, oh my gosh, let me get you a wheelchair. Like, she took me up there. She took me up to the desk, like got me through the doors and everything, no problem. And I get up there and every nurse at the nurse's station was looking at me like I was crazy. Like, you came here to get checked out. Like, I told them I was there to get checked out because my doctor had, you know, called them and then someone here had called me. And they were like, and now you're in labor? Like, and I was like, oh yeah. Like, as soon as I got off the phone with them, I started having contractions. And I mean, every single one of them looked at me like I was nuts. And one of them literally looked at me and was like, yeah, I don't think you're in labor. You're smiling, but come on, let's go get you checked out. So I'm like, lady, I know I'm in labor. This hurts. Like, I know I'm in labor. I know what labor is. Like, it was a different type of feeling than like being induced, but like I still knew I was in labor. My water hadn't broke. My water didn't break with Brady, but I still knew I was in labor. So they had me change into a gown. She came back in. Poor Brady had to like experience this whole situation with me. I mean, I swear she was traumatized for years from this. But anyway, so they checked me and she goes, yeah, you've dilated. And I thought she said none. And I was like, what? And she goes, you're at 9 centimeters. And I was like, what? Like, I definitely was not expecting to have been 9 centimeters in that short amount of time. Like, at this point, I mean, it had only been like an hour, if that.